Hey team! Today we are going to read chapters 7 and 8 of The Magnificent Makers, How to Test a Friendship. And I think we are realizing why this book might be called How to Test a Friendship, because we've been noticing that Pablo is a bit jealous of the friendship forming between Violet and Deepak. So they're in the Maker Maze, they're trying to solve these challenges. They have 120 Maker minutes in total, but the time is getting lower and lower. And we talked last time about nothing bad's going to happen if they don't meet these challenges, at least I think. Dr. Crisp, the lady who is kind of like Dr. Frizzle, not Dr. Frizzle, like Miss Frizzle from Magic School Bus, told them that if they don't complete the challenges, she just won't be able to invite them back to the Maker Maze, which I think they're enjoying because they really like science. So let's see if they're able to complete the challenges and figure out what's going on with this friendship dilemma. Chapter 7. Time to go overboard, said Dr. Crisp. They had reached the middle of the lake. But Dr. Crisp, said Violet, we don't have bathing suits. I'll take care of that, Dr. Crisp laughed. Then she said into her watch, Maker Maze, activate swim gear. Nothing happened. Oh, fiddle flasks, said Dr. Crisp. I need a new watch. She repeated the command. Boom, snap, whiz, zap. Suddenly, Pablo, Violet, and Deepak were spinning. They spun faster and faster until they could barely see the lake. Whoa, what's happening? Pablo shouted. Then they came to a sudden stop. I think I'm going to be sick, said Deepak, grabbing his stomach. Violet giggled. Let's do it again. Look, said Pablo, pointing at Violet and Deepak. They were all wearing wetsuits with flippers and scuba gear. Okay, hop to it, said Dr. Crisp. She showed the trio 2 small buttons on the side of their magnificent Maker watches. One was for scanning, and the other was for talking to one another underwater. Then she gave them one last tip. Remember, living things live close to what they eat. That's why it's called a food chain. Everything in an ecosystem is linked together by food. She winked. Good luck, makers. Violet wobbled to the edge of the boat. Pablo laughed. You're walking like a penguin. Let's see you try it, Violet called back as she hopped overboard. Deepak followed her. Pablo dove in. He swam to the bottom of the lake. It was covered with mud, twigs, and rocks. Then he saw something out of the corner of his eye. It looked like a little lobster. There weren't any lobsters in Newburgh Lake. He swam closer. It was a crayfish. Snap! Yikes, Pablo thought. The crayfish tried to pinch him. He backed off. Pablo waved to Violet and Deepak as he pointed at the feisty creature. They smiled through their scuba gear. Pablo aimed his watch at the crayfish. Out blasted a purple laser. It scanned the crayfish and his watch vibrated. A large check mark appeared on the screen. Pablo's stomach felt bubbly with excitement. The trio celebrated with high fives. A flashing arrow blinked on Pablo's watch. He swiped it. The word producer appeared. He swiped again. Consumer. And finally, scavenger. Which one is it? Asked Violet into her watch. Pablo knew the answer. Back in Puerto Rico, the stream that ran behind his house was full of crayfish. He loved watching the crayfish scuttle around. His mom called them the Basueros del Arroyo, the stream's garbage collectors. They ate rotting leaves and twigs. They also ate dead fish. One time, he saw a crayfish eating a minnow's head. Crayfish are scavengers, Pablo said. That's why you find them in the mud. I bet they eat all the dead stuff that falls to the bottom of the lake. Deepak shook his head. We had a pet crayfish in my class last year, he said. The teacher would feed it tiny fish, and the crayfish would hunt them. That means crayfish are consumers. Nope, said Pablo. Crayfish are scavengers. Guys, we're scientists. We can figure this out, said Violet. Pablo's nostrils flared. I know the answer. We should make sure we're right, said Violet. Deepak has a point. Pablo's excitement was turning into bubbles of anger. He faced Deepak. You think you know everything, but you don't. You don't know anything. The only thing you know is how to steal best friends, Pablo shouted. He swam off. Ooh, it's getting heated. Violet called out to him to wait, but Pablo was already far away. Pablo swam and swam. Violet and Deepak could figure out the rest of the challenge all by themselves. He was going to find Dr. Crisp and demand to go back. He wanted out of the Maker Maze. Pablo glanced over his shoulder but didn't see anyone. He was still looking back when he felt something slide along his arm. Then he saw something slide across the front of his helmet. He kicked his flippers harder, but after a few kicks, he could barely move his legs anymore. He was tangled. What is this stuff? Pablo thought. They look like skinny ropes, maybe vines. Then Pablo realized what was wound so tightly around his arms and legs. He was trapped in long, twisted water lily roots. Help! He screamed. His voice echoed inside of scuba gear. Violet and Deepak were too far away, and his arm was too tangled to use his watch. Pablo started to panic. How was he going to escape? Would Dr. Chris know something was wrong and come looking for him? The root grew tighter around his arms and legs. Pablo needed Violet, but his best friend was nowhere to be found. I should have stayed with the group, he thought. Pablo closed his eyes and began to cry. I think I would too in that situation. Chapter 8. Pablo struggled to free himself from the roots. Suddenly, there was a tug at his ankle. Pablo tried to kick away whatever was pulling at him. Get off, he shouted. He looked toward his flipper, but instead of some lake creature, he saw Violet and Deepak. Violet, you found me, Pablo exclaimed. He had never been happier to see his best friend. She and Deepak worked together to untangle the roots. Stand up, Pablo, Violet said into her watch. Pablo didn't understand. Stand up? He looked down. He was only a couple of feet above the bottom of the lake. Pablo felt so embarrassed. He was in shallow water. Pablo stood up. Violet and Deepak did the same. I'm sorry, you guys. I shouldn't have left like that. I got jealous, he said. He turned to Deepak. Violet has been my best friend since I came to Newburgh. Back then, I was the new kid. Now you're the new kid. You're smart, and you like science. Pablo paused, then said, I was scared you were going to become her new best friend. Pablo, no one could ever replace you, said Violet. She gave him a hug. I don't want to take your place, Pablo. I just want you guys to like me, said Deepak. Pablo understood how that felt. He remembered trying really hard to make friends. I'm sorry I wasn't more welcoming to you, Deepak. It's okay, Pablo. I'm glad we talked about this, Deepak said. Me too, agreed Violet. The three friends hugged one another tightly. Pablo checked his watch. We only have 40 maker minutes left. Violet bit her lip. Okay, back to the challenge. We found water lilies, but we haven't finished crayfish yet. What if crayfish are scavengers and consumers, she said. Maybe their role in the food chain depends on where they live. That's a good idea, said Pablo. He swiped his watch until the screen read consumer. He selected it. Nothing happened. He swiped again until he saw scavenger. Then he tapped the screen. Ring ding dong. Phew, that was super hard, said Deepak. He wiped his forehead. I'm glad we worked together to figure it out. He gave Pablo a pat on the back. Violet activated her watch to scan a water lily. The group agreed it was a producer. Ring ding dong. They started to search for a frog. Over here, Deepak shouted. A little green frog was sitting in the center of a water lily. Just as Deepak was about to scan it, the frog hopped away. Oh no, said Violet. They followed it carefully. The frog settled on another water lily with a pink flower blooming from its center. As Deepak aimed his watch, the frog opened its mouth. Out shot a long pink tongue. Smack! Landed right on a fly that was buzzing through the air. Its tongue moved so fast. That fly didn't stand a chance, said Pablo. No wonder frogs hang out here, Violet added. The flowers attract bugs. Frogs were definitely consumers. Ring ding dong. Level 2 was complete. Ahoy, makers, called a voice in the distance. Dr. Crisp was heading toward them on the boat. She hopped off into the water. Her lab coat and bright purple pants got soaked, but she didn't seem to mind. Dr. Crisp, did you know that crayfish can be either scavengers or consumers? Asked Pablo. He was still amazed at their discovery. Living things are always adapting, explained Dr. Crisp. Fish are very fast and hard to catch. So it's easier for crayfish to be scavengers in the wild? Asked Pablo. Precisely. Dr. Crisp winked. In a tank, crayfish will hunt. There's nowhere for fish to escape, she explained. That makes sense, replied Deepak. Dr. Crisp paused as she took the maker manual out of her backpack. You know, friend groups are a lot like ecosystems. Over time, they can change, and that isn't always bad.